Heads up, guys, the background gameplay footage is from Viscera cleanup detail, so there is some cartoonish blood and gore. If that's not your thing, just listen to the video in the background while you do other stuff. It's fine. Anyway, enjoy. Huh? It's some kind of gift basket. Well, what's inside here anyway? A shiny rock. Some loose buttons. What? A half-used eraser, rubber duck, pack of pencils that's already been opened. Oh, wait, what's this? The blue origami crane. This is rather odd. It seems excellently made, too. It's pretty much the only thing worthwhile in this. Why the hell would someone even leave all this on my doorstep? It's whatever. I'll look at it more later. I've got shit to do.
Go meet your co-stars. Your friends for the rest of your life.
An electronical performer, you're one of us now. You're better off if you can just accept it. Within the headset, you're reborn now. We'll never know how. The only truth is that there is no exit.
Say goodbye to the real.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Here we are, once again, with me caring about things that don't matter. There's not a lot of context needed here other than that The Amazing Digital Circus is currently only a pilot for an indie animation found on channel Glitch. So instead of focusing on context, I want to draw attention to something out the gate that I plan to elaborate on in my final thoughts. Getting on people for having opinions you don't agree with is stupid, and anyone who tries to do that for any reason is stupid, and that's not what I'm here for. Yes, I like The Amazing Digital Circus, but that's not why I'm making this video. I saw this video and had issues with the way things were presented, not because I think this guy is wrong for having an opinion that is different from mine. With that being said...
So I didn't care for Digital Circus.
Move this man!
We're already 5 seconds in, and I don't like this, but I'm sure he turns this around in a way that's funny. Let's let him talk.
So I didn't care for Digital Circus.
Move this man!
Yeah. Have fun roasting me in the comments. I'm sure I deserve it. But as the lone hater island in a sea of praise, I'm just gonna say my piece and move on.
No, it's not at all any better. Okay. So then, let's get this out of the way. I don't like the way this intro presents itself. Not only does it feel super condescending with the "I'm sure I deserve it," but out the gate, you're putting a target on yourself before the opposition is even given a chance to hear what you're saying. Bro, you haven't even gotten to why you didn't like it that much, and you're already presumptuously assumed at least a portion of the people who watch this video will go to the comments to roast you. You haven't given yourself a chance to breathe, let alone whoever disagrees with you. And this isn't to say you can't bring up that this might be an unpopular take. I think you can, if it's funny. But this isn't done in a way that makes it feel like it's in good fun. It instead feels like you're just trying to poke the bear and set up a self-fulfilling prophecy where anyone who disagrees with you is now some irrational, your opinion bad kind of person. And also, your point of it being an unpopular opinion, why are you bringing this up? I came here to listen to why you don't like the pilot, not to have you go on about how this is a big, unpopular opinion you're spraying to the world before you even get to what you're talking about. Why does this at all matter? It puts a bad taste in my mouth from the get-go.
If you like this show, good for you. Like, I'm genuinely happy people are enjoying this thing. I hope we get more of it and it can probably win me over later. But for a litany of petty reasons, this pilot just wasn't it for me. As all of its attempts to be funny are kinda just and all of its attempts to show off what an unsettling existential nightmare this place is just come off sounding the same to me.
And into the cellar you go.
Ooh, nightmare fuel.
Okay, no, we're going back to this. You showing off what would be someone with the opposite opinion, booing you, and making a remark about roasting you in the comments, then you go to have a calm and rational stance, just makes me think more about that your opinion bad thing I said earlier, and I'm starting to think that may actually be what this is. No, jokes aside, I don't think you really did that purposely, but it's what it comes across as. And yes, I know, we're not even a minute in, and I'm already having problems with what's just the introduction. I'll get into the actual issues I have with your points later, when you actually start to bring them up, but yeah, you guys may have noticed I don't like any of this so far. Anyway, I have to skip to 3 to 8 because this entire section is basically just positive things about the pilot, which is why I don't think any of this video is popular thing bad, and that your points later on in the video are likely due to some misunderstandings of what the show is trying to be. I'll elaborate later.
On a technical level, I love almost everything that this pilot is doing. Some of the stuff might be the first obvious choice, but that doesn't mean it's not good, just a little predictable.
Okay. I want to skip to this point. Saying that things are predictable implies that there isn't much effort being put into certain creative choices. But you say later on in this video, and in the thumbnail, that it tries too hard. So which is it? Now yes, I get that these things can coexist, but you're not presenting it that way. You're saying that the predictable things are where they try too hard. So if they try too hard with the bits that are lazy? I'm confused. Anyway, he then proceeds to continue to talk about things he does like about the pilot, which I'm silently taking notes of how much of this video is actually talking about his problems, by the way.
I'm on it, boss! Ow. Ow.
Why are you like this?
Okay, all set. Let's get to my issues. And let's start with a big one that makes the most sense before I steadily get more and more pedantic.
Oh boy, here we go!
This show has been described as I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream with the aesthetic of an I Spy book. Two books that I actually love, and I can see myself adoring this show. But from just the pilot, I was left thinking that it is just okay. It's a great concept with all right execution and a lot of great polish, with the biggest source of discontent for me being how I never really buy into like the psychological horror of just being here.
What did any of that mean?
Like it's there. It's trying. My god, is it trying. But the phrase that comes to mind when I'm trying to describe these moments, for me, is performative existentialism. This show is great at planting little things to unsettle you, but every time it goes for the big swing, it always feels like a bit.
We stay right here, where I can keep my hundreds of all-seeing eyes on you.
I know this is a dark comedy.
Okay, I am gonna let you finish, I promise, but yeah, dark comedies tend to combine both the more unsettling and funny moments. Of course there are going to be moments of the darker tones mixed with some humor, and there are a good few times where they're separate as well. And yes, you explain a bit more later, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't think the way you're presenting it shows what you think it does at all. It feels like you're complaining it's trying to be a comedy, period. And if you just want it to be a horror, that's fine, dude, you can say it. You don't need to dance around it. But with what you say now and what you say later, it sounds like you're mad at a comedian for trying to make you laugh.
But every time it tries something like this, the vibe it gives off is... Ooh, implications! Ooh, liminal horror! Like, I feel like I'm laughing at it rather than with it here. The show wants to press upon us so badly what a horrific existence it would be to be trapped in this world. But for me, I'm kind of just sitting here thinking about how unserious this feels.
This is what I mean when I say it feels like you're mad at it for being a comedy. And also, it's annoying how you seem to just push aside its actual attempts to unsettle you. Liminal spaces are often associated with anxiety, and I'd argue also derealization, which combined with the scene before that you dismissed with implications, and the scene it leads into with Pomni going into the void, it looks as if that's what it's going for. You're cutting it up into smaller chunks and pointing and laughing as you don't give the show a chance to even set things up for the punch.
As yeah, it's a terrible situation. I kind of figured that out in the first 3 minutes. Nobody's handling it well here, but between the moments of horror that are beat for beat the exact moment you'd expect, slow zooms in as their mind breaks from the realization only to pull back with a joke, not to mention a hallway exit scene that feels like it is on its knees praying, begging, desperately asking for you to ask questions about what's going on.
Okay, there's a lot going on and not a lot of time, so let's break this down.
Moments of horror that are beat for beat the exact moment you'd expect.
Again, with something that sounds as if you're trying to get across that this pilot is being lazy by using these tactics. When you then go on later in this clip to say,
That feels like it is on its knees praying, begging, desperately asking for you to ask questions about what's going on.
to continue your rhetoric that it's trying too hard. Please pick a lane and stick with it. We're swerving here.
Slow zooms in as their mind breaks from the realization, only to pull back with a joke.
Again, it feels like you're mad at it for trying to make you laugh. Not to mention, there are a few moments where the pilot does that, but doesn't instantly cut into a joke. One of which you show with Ragatha, because she doesn't just instantly pull into a joke. Instead, she takes a moment to calm and let the tension cool off, but not fully disappear, to then use space for Pomni's reaction.
When you reach your breaking point, something really terrible can happen. But that's not something we need to deal with today. Above anything else, the adventures give us something to do that keeps our minds healthy and stimulated.
Thank goodness this is all a dream, right, Pomni?
I do not like this overgeneralization.
What's that computer mean? What's CNA? What's the spoiler? What the fuck is in the cellar? It takes me out.
How dare a pilot that means to garner attention to an idea in hopes of getting money to make it a full series plant ideas to create intrigue and questions into the mind of its viewers to get them interested, to get a discussion going, so they may be able to get an audience for the show they want to make. Also, this is gonna seem small, but this lays into a point I have, so bear with me. You mentioned the spoiler, and in your list of questions you ask what it is. And what bothers me is that Kane tells us what it is in the show pretty plainly.
I do have to apologize for lying about the exit. I knew how much all of you have been wanting there to be one, but, I was having so much trouble figuring out what to put on the other side and ended up never quite finishing it. And you know how I never like letting people see my unfinished work, especially if it leads you out into the void.
He says pretty plainly that he doesn't want people to see unfinished work. Usually we refer to people ruining the experience of something by letting slip what happens as spoiling something. It's not rocket science, my guy. These curtains are blue.
The goddamn bed is blue!
You also ask what the cellar is, but that's pretty self-explanatory. It's the place where the abstractions go. Sure, maybe we'll learn more about it later, but we get the basic idea, and for now, that's really all we need. And like I said, that's a small point, but it leads me to believe that maybe you weren't exactly paying attention to the pilot. I said multiple times that this video has the issue of not letting something have its space to breathe, but this is exactly what I mean. You're not even giving it the chance to tell its story on its own terms, as you seem to talk over it and miss things because of it. At the very least, it's the impression I get.
I don't hate it, but my honest takeaway is, look how hard it's trying. Which is just so condescending on my part. But I am struggling to explain why I just feel so detached. This just keeps me from engaging with the story on its level and what it's trying to do.
I mean, if you actually want a piece of advice, I'd say give the pilot space to breathe without pushing in your preconceived notions when it comes to how other series tackle existentialism. And also remember, it's a pilot. His point is to give the viewer an idea of what they plan to do and what they should expect going forward. It's gonna be a little in your face about it. Honestly, and I'm not trying to be condescending, I feel like you're coming at this from a first episode perspective, not the perspective of a pilot. Hell, some things may even be set to change. We really don't know yet. We're going off so little.
I think part of my unseriousness is that within this pilot, I struggle to have any sense of danger. There's fun slapstick to it, but I kind of struggled to register any of this as a threat. As in the moment, but especially in hindsight, the story just keeps taking me out of it and just showing there's not much threat here.
So before we go forward, I actually want to put something into perspective. The Amazing Digital Circus is, at its core, a psychological dark comedy. which means that a majority of its darker themes aren't going to be focused on a scary monster or the characters being in life-threatening peril, but instead how it affects their mental state and what kind of ideas and questions it tries to put into the viewer. This is in contrast to things like slasher horror that focus on the danger of being under attack by some kind of killer or monster. Okay? Okay.
And that just leaves the lukewarm comedy, as you realize that the only real danger for these characters is the abstraction, as giving up and going insane. The abstraction beat the hell out of Rackety, but despite a royal ass whooping and glitching out, which does seem painful, but it's kinda unclear if the abstraction can actually kill them, as we never see an abstraction destroy an NPC or glitch out something to an unrecognizable state or absorb it into itself. Instead, it just looks like it hurts. Kane can snap his fingers and fix them physically, so really this brings back the focus on the character's mental state. That the only way for these characters to go is for their minds to break, to give up, and for them to forget who they are as they lose all sense of themselves, devolving into these frustrating monstrosities that can only lash out.
Now, I want you all to turn to your left and see how Sarcastic Chorus completely misses the bit of it being psychological and focuses on actual peril and harm. Which, first off, even if something isn't immediately life-threatening, that doesn't mean it's not some level of threat. Besides, it's not like death is the end-all be-all of things threatening. You ever heard of a fate worse than death? Yeah, that's basically what I'm going for here. Completely shoving aside that because they're in a digital world they can't really die and saying that there's no threat is just missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture being that, yeah, there is still a level of threat here. That is losing your sanity and abstracting. It's pretty well shown that Kaufmo basically loses his sense of self and turns into this glitchy creature that just wants to tear into whatever is in its wake. Not to mention the threat of being thrown down into the cellar with the other abstractions, basically floating in an endless black sea of darkness. That's what's supposed to be the threat here. And then there's also the added terror of when you get sent into the digital circus, you don't remember who you are. You've completely missed that this is existential horror. The entire idea is losing yourself in the midst of your situation.
So unless that aspect is dug more into, and we watch someone start to slip and for it not to be done with a wink, the threat isn't there to actually get me to care. I like the characters, but it's so early I don't actually care if any of them die.
I'm just gonna tap the sign again that says this is a pilot, and to give this thing its room to breathe, please, you're suffocating it.
And the glowing B-plot kinda sucks. It represents the lame adventures Kane will make them do and how they are literal time killers, but this B-plot exists solely to provide a cutaway for Pomni's story, and it never feels like that's not the case.
Wait, hold on! You just acknowledged the point of the B-plot, that being to establish some of the world that is Kane's adventures he sends people on and what they tend to include, and then completely sidestep that and say it's just for the sake of a cutaway. You can argue how well it does this, but you don't do that. Bro. Editing point here would just like to add that by sidestepping your own point of the B-plot's purpose, we've gone from misunderstanding the pilot to misunderstanding your own points in your own video. Bruh!
I'm on it, boss! Ow.
Why are you like this?
But now to move on to something less controversial, I hate looking at the tent. This pre-K McPlay Place oversaturated visual vomit kinda drives me insane. Like, they really did a good job designing this place. It's that perfect I Spy kid show environment that's meant to look friendly, but only makes you feel crazier sitting there. But for me, the problem comes from the fact that I find it really distracting half the time. There's so much going on in this background. There's so many colors, so many things going different ways. I feel like the show half the time doesn't do enough to bring focus back to what I'm supposed to be looking at.
Okay, now, I don't know much about the composition of a scene, but actually, the Amazing Digital Circus does make an attempt to show you what you're supposed to be looking at by making the background entirely stationary, drawing the eyes to look at the moving characters in contrast. There's also the more obvious moments where a character takes up the majority of the screen, or we have the contrasting blackness of the abstraction.
My uneducated guess is that the lack of detail in intentionally bright colors make it so that the soft blur that they do to delineate what's in the foreground and the background doesn't do enough. as instead, it kind of still looks like it's in focus even when it's actually not, meaning that all these wide shots feel like that they have way too much going on.
I do think it's intentionally disorientating half the time, but only half. Cool, you gonna explain to us what you mean by only half the time, or what gives any indication of what is supposed to be disorientating, what's not? That's a nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
No? Then I care about half as much as I did before!
Which is something I can also say about Kane's design.
Move this man!
Stop suffocating your own point, I'm begging!
Okay, now the real hill I'm about to die on, for basically no reason. But for as fun as the eyes and the mouth look is, I often found it more distracting than anything else. Yeah, some real artistry went into making these teeth emote. Yeah, put it all in the comments, I won't read any of them. But for me, years of masking has set me up to make just way too much eye contact. So when Kane's on screen, I always feel like I have to be focusing on the eyes. But since he's talking most of the time, and yeah, he is probably, like, he's not my least favorite character, I do feel like he's the one whose comedy and just bit misses the most for me. Half of that is intentional, but he is the one character I'm like, okay, this is more cringe than cute. But when he's talking most of the time and I'm staring at those eyes, what I'm focusing on is interrupted by his teeth moving around and just getting in the way of my point of focus. So I pull back to watch the teeth actually say the thing, only for that to lead me to drift back towards the eyes again and rinse and repeat. I feel like I never know what I'm supposed to be looking at with this guy other than the nebulous everything.
Now I get to throw in a bit of my character design talents, in quotes, into the ring, mixed with the fact I like to call myself a horror artist to explain this. Sarcastic chorus, you are in a place known only as the Uncanny Valley! Let me explain. A lot of Kane's mannerisms and characteristics lend to being heavily trying to be more human and more understanding of humans, but he's clearly just not. And from the way the show presents this, it's very intentional. Kane is one of the things in this show we're not supposed to fully understand, despite how often we see him, which lends me to believe that this may be an intentional design choice to lend into that Uncanny Valley. Sure, it's not the kind of Uncanny Valley we're used to, but it has a similar design aspect where even if I'm wrong and it's not intentional, it still gives off those vibes. He even is mostly human looking. Sure, it's not very human to have his head be a mouth with eyes in it, but it's a human mouth and eyes. And he even has the proportions and clothes we associate with people if you look below the head.
Kane feels like he was a really fun character to animate, but this eye-mouth situation is my personal hell, and it feels a little bit like I'm watching anime with subtitles. We're at a point I'm not really watching what's going on, but I am. But I'm not, since my focus is constantly being split. This is a me thing, sue me.
And I left that bit in the end off that point to say it's okay if that's not for you, but I feel like that's where the issue lends itself in this video, where it put things off as both subjective and objective at the same time, and it's just not it, Chief. The nature of this video is to be subjective, but it constantly comes across that you're trying to present them as fact, only to lampshade it by saying, maybe that's just me. And that's where most of my points end, but I would like to isolate one section of this video and talk about it for a moment before closing off.
But to me, it's just fine. Cute enough, chuckled maybe once every 5 minutes. Would watch a full season, but I'm not holding my breath for it. And if you liked it, there's something wrong with you. But no, seriously. I'm really happy that people are loving this pilot more than I am.
Now I know this is played off as a joke, but when you go out of your way to hand your audience the proverbial pitchforks and put yourself on a hill saying how much flack this video will get and that people are going to get onto your case for having an opinion, you saying it's a joke comes across as pretty disingenuous. And I'm gonna say it once again. I'm not here to listen to you say how unpopular your opinion is or how much hate it's gonna get you, okay? I'm here to listen to why you don't really like it. And having this video bogged down with you just needing to tell us about how this is such a hot take of thing isn't that good, it feels less and less like you actually want to share your opinion that I actually came here to listen to. And I'm gonna be real, dude, your opinion isn't unpopular. The show already has a hate dump, even though it's still a pilot, because popular thing bad. And I'm not gonna downright say that you also have a hate on for the show. Like, I said your video shows me you're willing to give it a chance, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like you're actively giving it that chance you're so willing to give. You have actual points other than it's popular and I don't like it, so I'm not saying you're at that point where you're just hating on it for the sake of hating on it, but the presentation is still majorly lacking. With all of that, I can finally get to my conclusion. Now, I'm just gonna start off by saying, once again, I don't think this guy is bad for having a different opinion than me. If he were to, theoretically, look at what I presented and come back with the same conclusion, then at that point, I'll just agree to disagree. Trying to change someone's opinion about something so subjective is dumb, and you should feel dumb if you try to do that. I seriously did give myself time to step back and consider what you had to put down. But man, your presentation is lacking! Really, my issues with it boil down to giving your own opinion room to breathe, and please stop pushing the fact that it's so unpopular into it. It's what got me eye-rolling. Ironically, I think I had a similar reaction to this video that you said you had to the pilot. As I said before, the video as it goes feels less and less like actually just giving your thoughts, and you just being kind of pretentious when we haven't gotten a proper chance to see what this series wants to show us. I know I kept bringing up give it space and let it breathe, but that applies to everything here. It's a pilot! There's still a lot that Gooseworks and Glitch Productions is yet to tell us, and they had to put as much of a plot synopsis into one episode, which it's not an actual episode, as they could. This is just here to get some kind of audience, so they could then potentially get funding to make an actual series, which they did get the funding for it. And we're going to be getting a proper series to give us a proper look at what the pilot is showing us it wants to tell us, and then could then be, properly critiqued with the proper context. How many times can I say proper? I really do think you're trying to give this a chance, but that chance feels bogged down with all the things that aren't problems with the show, and is more you not letting it stand on its own. You even admit some things may be petty. And again, if you were to look back and still say it's not for you so far, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. I don't hate that you have an opinion, it just got to a point where the presentation made it no longer feel like your own. I'm not saying something dumb like you need to have a deep understanding of horror or comedy to understand the amazing digital circus. It's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, and at the end of the day, I'm fine with that. I just start side-eyeing these kinds of things when the reasons seem less like actual points and more, well, petty, unimportant nonsense, or just a misunderstanding of what is being put across. And that's the best way I can start to summarize my thoughts before I start repeating myself, so all I have to say to end off is, good evening and good night. Okay, well, that's all done. The video's rendering, so I might as well take a closer look at this stuff. What else is in here? Wait, there's writing on this. It's a note? How do I fold this? Okay. To the demon dressed mortal, we hope this letter finds you unexpected. You have been targeted. You won't know what will happen or when it will happen, but we expect to see you when the time comes. Be on your guard, because you won't see us until it's too late. Make no mistake, these words are not hollow. When the day comes, you will see us, but not before we see you. Can your simple compass tech withstand genius? From user MFB. Compass tech. Wait, Compass! It's the company I got Graphy from. What the hell is going on? Okay, whoever this user MFB person is, they know where I am, and they know me, vaguely, then I should take this seriously. I need to be ready for whenever they strike. I should do some research.